Hey, Michael, welcome to Crosswalk Talk. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. It's great to speak with you.
Talking to author and radio host Michael Medved, who wrote the book American Miracle, which has been turned into a movie, which will be in theaters June 9 through 11. AmericanMiracleMovie.com is the website. Michael, you released that book back in 2016. I'm assuming you'd been working on it for years before that. What sparked your interest to write a book on the providential founding of America?
It was such a striking thing. And frankly, my background, I grew up in Philadelphia as a little kid. And my dad, who was an American miracle in his own story, his parents had come over to our country in 1924. And they had been separated for years. My grandmother had lost the six children that they had back in Ukraine. And when they came to America, they reunited after 10 years of separation because of World War One and the Soviet Revolution and the Civil War in Russia. And finally, they are back together. And my grandmother got very sick and went to the doctor, and she couldn't keep food down. She was feeling terrible. She was certain she had a tumor. And the doctor said, "No, you don't have a tumor, you have a baby." And she said, "That's impossible. I'm 50." And she said, "Well, your name is Sarah, isn't it?" And it was. And that was my dad. And my dad, uh, when he was a graduate student in physics at the University of Pennsylvania, I was born, and he took me around as a little kid to Valley Forge and Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell and the Franklin Institute that had this big imposing statue of Ben Franklin. And he really taught me this idea of how grateful we should be that he actually was born in America. He was born of the sesquicentennial year, 1926. And that's basically something I've always been longing to do, is to talk about this idea that America and the blessings of America are no accident, that there's a purpose to it, uh,
Mm.
that the country really has been blessed, and not blessed with special privileges, but blessed with special responsibilities. That's the American message.
You say special responsibilities. Let's build on that as we chat here. What do you think those responsibilities are?
Basically, to hold up the ideals of human freedom, of human choice, and of trying to discern and then to do God's will. There's a quote I love, and it's not from an American, it's from a German, Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor of Germany, who once said, "It is the job of a statesman," and here you could say the job of an American citizen, to listen for God's footsteps in history and then to grab his coattails and hang on.
Mm.
And I think that all of our most important leaders who have believed in the American miracle, the idea that America was designated for a special destiny that made it different from other countries, that has inspired all of the most significant leaders of this country from the very beginning. And this amazing assemblage of people in the revolutionary generation. One of the points that we make in the film is the idea that people say, well, okay, it's not such a miracle. It's just a happy coincidence that all of these remarkable people were living together and working together at the same time. But first of all, a pattern of happy accidents is still a pattern.
Mm.
And secondly, part of what all those founders agreed on was the idea of divine providence, that they had a special destiny for which God had determined a path for the United States. And that it seems to me is one of the things that we need to recapture, sending a message that we should feel gratitude, not guilt, about our nation's past.
Are there one or two stories from the founding of America that you like to retell when this topic is raised about the providential founding of America? Maybe something about the Revolutionary War. What are your favorite stories when
Well,
discussing this?
one of my favorite stories, because it goes so much goes to this point, is about the 4th of July. That was the 50th anniversary of the country. There are people, skeptics, that thought that this new country wouldn't last 50 years, but it did. And 1826 came along, and it's a jubilee year because the 50th year is a jubilee in the Bible. And what happened on that day is they were celebrating the fact that John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, the two main architects of the Declaration of Independence, were both still alive. Adams was 90 at a time when the typical uh, life expectancy was 40.
Yeah.
Jefferson was 83. And they both sent messages to the public to celebrate this 50th year of America. And by the end of the day, they had both died.
Mm.
And one of my favorite stories is there was a speech, a eulogy that was given by Daniel Webster at Faneuil Hall in Boston. We actually filmed in Faneuil Hall and recreated that speech, where he talked about how this indicated America's special destiny. The idea that you have two presidents, first, second president, third president, who died on the same day, that they had been enemies and political rivals and then friends again. And it was the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. The odds against that are about 5 million to 1. And okay, you say a pattern of happy accidents, lots of those happy accidents. That one of the things that I love is George Washington, in his first inaugural address, said that we owed our gratitude for this occasion to the invisible hand that has guided us and protected us. And I was thinking, because Washington used that phrase, of calling this this film The Invisible Hand, but then people think it's a horror film. And it's not. Though The Invisible Hand, I think, is very real.
I think so as well. What will people experience in this movie? Give us a preview of it.
Sure, they will experience some of those remarkable coincidences that allowed this country to come into being. And one of them involved the escape from Brooklyn. Again, it sounds like a horror film, but it was a horror for the Continental Army and for George Washington, because if they had been captured, they would have been executed. The British were very clear and explicit that that was their purpose. And they lost the Battle of Brooklyn and on Long Island, and were stuck because there was a British fleet that was keeping them hemmed into Brooklyn. They couldn't escape to Manhattan or to the mainland because they were surrounded. And it's August of 1776. They had just declared independence the month before. And so what happens is, in the middle of this desperate moment, there's suddenly this thick blanket of fog, and totally unseasonable, because Manhattan isn't foggy in August. And Washington ordered his men to get into little boats and to row past through this thick fog and to escape the British. And they escaped with no casualties and went on to win the war. That is a story that we recreate. Actually, I'm pretty proud as a film critic of some of the special effects and the recreations that they do of that moment that even the British commander, Lord William Howe, thought was miraculous.
This is releasing around the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. What do you hope viewers take away from this film?
Is this sense that there are all kinds of divisions among the founding fathers, who were rivals and sometimes disagreeing and sometimes making political war on one another, but they came together. And they came together with this belief of America's special destiny, of this belief that we should feel, in particular, gratitude and not grievance, which seems to be the age we live in right now. And I'm hoping that this will help to
Mm,
bring Americans together of every political perspective. One of the things we have is scholars who comment on the reality of this special American destiny. And one of the people we feature in the film is Academy Award winning actor Richard Dreyfuss. who's not known to be a conservative, but he is known to be a patriot. And he's somebody who has been fighting for civics in our schooling. And he, toward the end of the film, he almost loses it, and the audience goes along with it, talking about how in his heart, the love that he feels for America, which is an appropriate emotion, it seems to me, for anyone fortunate enough to live in this country, and particularly who've been born right here in the USA.